The other thing that I think is really important, maybe you can speak to this, is college isn't all about education. A humongous portion of the college experience is about networking. Tell me how HBCUs impact Black students in that way.
See, and again, this is another fascinating question and a super nuanced one, because I've heard a variation of a question like that in terms of like how do you expect to sort of function in the real world if your experience is solely grounded in a fully Black space like this. And so, how do you expect to network? How do you expect to make connections? How do you expect to do so on and so forth? But one of the great things about this is that, of course, like you say, college is not just about the educational elements. It's about, the organizations that you're a part of. If you are a part of a band at a particular institution and people know that that's the case, they'll recognize that and they'll be like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna hook you up. I'll give you this access because I know you've had a similar kind of experience. And again, speaking as somebody who went to Morehouse in particular, the second somebody finds out you went to Morehouse, that you are a Morehouse man, like all of a sudden everything just doors open up for you. And people really will try to hold you down in that regard. And it's a similar sort of a thing if you're a part of, and I can't speak specifically to this because I wasn't Greek, but what I've heard in terms of stories, like people who are part of those Divine Nine, those Greek organizations, the nine, historically Black fraternities and sororities, they definitely will do a lot to sort of help one another out. Um, and that's kind of the cool thing about an HBCU in general. It's kind of like being a part of a giant fraternity or sorority. People that you see when they recognize that, oh, okay, oh, you've had this kind of experience. Let me see what I can do to try and, be accommodating for you, or to throw you a line or something like, or help you out a little bit, or mentor you a little bit too. Because again, everybody really, we know that we all rise when we all rise, right? And these institutions also really foster, as mentioned previously, that sense of community. So it's like, how can we really sort of build collective mindsets or community oriented mindsets by pulling up the people who came behind us? And again, what's that, the expression? I forget what organization it's the slogan for, or lifting as we climb, right? Maybe that's the United Negro College Fund. I don't know. I don't want to misattribute or nothing like that. But
Right.
again, that's sort of the ethos.
Mhm.
And I think that that's such a cool kind of thing, right? I mean, it's all about the kinds of connections that you could. I was walking around an airport wearing some paraphernalia from one of the HBCUs that I've been affiliated with, and somebody just saw me in it, and they were like, "Oh, yo, I went there." Or I see that, or class of such and such, right?
Mhm.
And people love to just shout you out like that because it's a weird way of making yourself very visible.
Mhm.
And even if my father went to Howard and for med school, and I rib him all the time because it's good natured rivalry, because it's like, oh well, yeah, you went to Howard, whatever. I mean, that's like a decent school, I suppose, but it's not Morehouse. But we have these kinds of it's like a sibling rivalry kind of a thing,
Mhm.
because you know that the other school is another HBCU just like you, and so you want to validate them in their existence and stuff like that. But at the same time, somebody got to be the best, and
Right.
inevitably Morehouse got to be the best, right? So
Yeah. I think so, man, I and this is just be my imagination here, and I don't know for sure that there. I mean, if there probably could be some data to back something up like that, but I know that for college graduates, um, I had a conversation with someone we were debating, and they were saying that they didn't like HBCUs because they felt that they were more expensive than their non-H, than whatever. And so I looked it up, and at the time, this was in 2021, I want to say, and at the time, HBCUs on average cost less than
mm,
PWIs actually. And furthermore, he was saying that they didn't provide as great of an opportunity for their graduates, and I think we looked up the data right then, and it found that on average, HBCU grads made several $1,000s more a year than the PWI Black counterparts, and so I guess I would imagine, because Black professionals exist in the real world, and I would imagine if you're going to an HBCU and developing that network, that black people who have graduated from HBCUs, which are a lot more plentiful in the previous generations, would want to help specifically recruit people from HBCUs and things like that. So I would imagine that is what would cause that difference in opportunity, because you hear a lot of horror stories about college graduates, black college graduates who don't earn as much, who have a much harder time finding opportunities. And so you'll find that a degree for black people doesn't confer the same annual income as it does for white, the exact same degree as it does for Caucasians. And so I would imagine just being part of that divine line, being part of those experiences, having those mentors, having people who are professionals who are still giving back to the community and things like that would probably provide a little bit more opportunity. That's just my thought
Absolutely.
process.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that they again, it's speaking to the ethos at graduation. One of the things that they kept trying to tell us was, now people will graduate from these institutions. I'm speaking anecdotally, of course. I don't have hard evidence to back this up, so you'll excuse me on this as well. But people will tell you, people will graduate from these schools and they don't give back. People don't give back to the institution that sort of helped make them who they are, and so on and so forth. And that's like a thing that they really try to impress upon us. And so, I lean very hard in the opposite direction. Even when I was a struggling grad student, I was like, let me send my little $5 back to Morehouse, because ain't nobody gonna say I didn't give back.
Right.
Because again, I want this opportunity to be available for somebody who came behind me. And there was, of course, that story, and I'm blanking on the gentleman's name, of course, which is really bad and maybe makes this case not as helpful as it might be. But this was just a couple of years ago, where Morehouse made a whole lot of headlines because there was a billionaire who came to give like a commencement address or something like that at graduation. He paid off everybody's student loans, like the whole graduating class.
That's crazy.
It is, yeah. And that's why it was such like it made so much like shockwaves throughout the media sphere, because people were like, wow, this guy really just paid off everybody's student loans. And again, I'm sorry I don't have names or anything like that. And I'm sure a quick Google search, your audience might be able to sort of check this out. Maybe you might even be able to find it as well. But yeah, again, that desire to recognize the fact that we can help one another, and it's important. And I think that that's a big part of what these institutions really do strive, when they're at their very best, to be able to do.
Yeah, his name was Robert Smith.
That's right.
Uh,
That's right.
yeah, it's crazy. I didn't know that even existed.
Yeah. Now,
Oh.
I mean, graduating classes at these institutions are not as big as they are at, like, I mean, Morehouse is a pretty small school or whatever, all things considered. But, still though,
Yeah,
you
I'm
paid
saying
off
we're
a whole
not
graduating class.
downplaying this at all. I mean,
Yeah.
college student loans are, they're a force. You know what I mean? They've
Oh
been
yeah.
so much a part of the political discourse as it is now, and there's been so many people who have like kind of accepted even the notion that I'm going to go to college, and then these student loans will be with me for the rest of my life, while I'll just go ahead and
Hmm.
continue and do my life kind of independent of them, and so on and so forth. Student loan debt at this point is, approaching levels that are like trillions and trillions of dollars at this point. It's absurd numbers, and so I mean, to do something like that, I think just gives so many people an advantage, because obviously even when it comes to like buying a home, one of the biggest factors is your debt to income ratio. So then if you
Exactly.
get rid of what is, I would imagine for most of these people, their largest debt, right? Then I mean, you immediately give them the ability to enter into the house buying market, which is what generates so much wealth. And so it's a transformative. That is a transformative act there for every
Yeah.
person that graduated in that situation.
Hmm.
That is insane. Shout outs to
Hmm.
Robert Smith for that. I just didn't want to let his
Yeah.
name not be remembered, because that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing.
Escape and float into my